My name is Marissa Hale. I'm 30 years old, and people have spent their whole lives assuming they know me. They look at my last name, my family estate, and the trust fund my parents built, and suddenly I stop being a person. I become a rumor, a shortcut, a ticket to the lifestyle they think I live. They call me the trust fund princess. They imagine yachts, mansion parties, bottomless champagne. But the truth, I grew up watching my parents grind themselves to exhaustion to build what we had. Every dollar had weight. Every investment meant sacrifice. And they raised me with one fundamental rule: never be careless with what others built through pain. I kept that rule close, too close maybe. For most of my life, any friendship I had came with strings. People tried to cozy up to me, hoping I'd bankroll their fun. When I didn't, they drifted off, so I became cautious, private, careful with who I let close. That changed the night I met Daniel Mercer. It was graduation week. I was tired, overwhelmed, and ready to escape the noise. Daniel didn't seem to know who I was. He wasn't dazzled, wasn't fawning, just warm, grounded, and genuinely charming. We talked like we were old friends, exchanged numbers. He made me feel like myself, not my family's legacy. Our first date was at McDonald's. Greasy fries, cheap sundaes, laughing until my cheeks hurt. I fell in love. Daniel was the first man who saw me without the price tag attached. He never asked for anything expensive. He refused costly gifts. He made me feel normal, safe, real. When I took him to meet my parents a month later, my heart was pounding. But Daniel handled everything with calm humility. He didn't flinch at the wealth, didn't act impressed, didn't make it weird. My parents were delighted he was the first man I ever brought home. We dated for a year. I proposed. He said yes with tears in his eyes. For years, I believed I had everything: a loving husband, supportive parents, a future built on trust. But between the toasts and the business events, I occasionally noticed Daniel talking to Clara Roth, a woman from his company. Pretty, confident, a little too flirtatious. She laughed too loudly at his jokes, brushed his arm when she talked. But Daniel always brushed it off as friendly banter, and I trusted him. God, I trusted him so much. Maybe I shouldn't have. When my parents passed away 6 months apart, my life shattered. My grief was a storm I couldn't outrun, and I threw myself into managing their company to keep from drowning. Daniel didn't comfort me, didn't hold me, didn't ask if I was okay. He just drifted further away, the distance growing like a quiet crack in the foundation of our marriage. I excused it. I blamed grief. I let myself believe he was struggling too. I didn't know the truth. Not yet. Not until the afternoon I came home early with a bouquet of roses and my spare key, and found Daniel standing in our living room with 2 suitcases, and Clara standing behind him, with hers, smiling, ready to go, ready to leave me, ready to steal everything. I stood there holding the roses like an idiot, bright pink petals trembling between my fingers while Clara lifted her sunglasses and smiled at me as if we were old friends meeting for brunch. Daniel didn't look ashamed. He didn't even look surprised. "Marissa," he said casually, "you're early." I stared at the suitcases, his, hers, perfectly packed, aligned by the door like a twisted display of teamwork. Clara stepped forward. "We were hoping to slip out before you got home. This is awkward." Awkward. The word punched through my ribs. Daniel cleared his throat, impatient. "Let's not drag it out. I'm leaving for Italy with Clara. When we get back, I'll send the divorce papers. It's better this way." "Better for who?" I swallowed, mouth dry. "You're leaving, just like that." Daniel shrugged, already reaching for his passport. "Your parents left you more than enough to take care of yourself. You'll be fine." Clara chimed in, cheerful. "Oh, and thanks in advance for financing the trip. Your family's trust really came through." That was when I realized it. They weren't just leaving me. They were using me. They'd been using me for years. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the roses. I didn't beg. I just froze while Clara plucked the bouquet out of my hand and giggled. "These are cute. I'll take them." Then they walked out of my house, my life, my marriage. And I stood alone in silence so loud it felt like the walls were caving in. For 2 days I didn't leave the bedroom, didn't open the blinds, didn't shower, didn't eat anything except stale crackers and cold leftovers. Grief is slow, but betrayal. Betrayal moves like fire, fast, brutal, consuming everything it touches. On the 3rd day, the doorbell began ringing. At first I ignored it, but it didn't stop. 5 minutes. 10. Then the pounding began, sharp, angry, rhythmic. A voice shouted through the door. "I know you're in there. Open up now." My heart lurched. For a moment, I thought, no, Daniel is in Italy. The voice wasn't his. This voice was sharper, rougher, male. I forced myself to my feet and opened the door. A tall, red-haired man in a tailored gray suit burst inside before I could react. He looked furious, eyes blazing, jaw clenched. "You're Marissa," he demanded. I blinked. "Yes." He exhaled harshly. "Good. Because we need to talk." I stepped back confused. "Who are you?" He looked me up and down, my messy hair, oversized sweatshirt, the exhaustion etched into my face. "You stink," he muttered. "Go shower. 15 minutes. Then meet me in the living room. I'm not leaving." I stared at him, stunned. "Excuse me." He pointed at himself. "I'm Evan Roth, Clara's husband." My breath caught. Clara's husband. The woman who left with Daniel. Now he was here, in my house. Before I could process anything, he strode past me and headed straight for the kitchen, opening drawers, inspecting the mess, shaking his head like a disappointed parent. "You've been in bed for 3 days, haven't you?" he said. I said nothing. "Right, go. Shower. 15 minutes." I just stood there. He stared at me. I stared back. "Okay, Mom," I said without thinking. He whipped around. I heard that. It was the first time in days that something inside me cracked. A sound escaped my throat. Not quite a laugh, but close enough to remind me I was still human. 15 minutes later, after the hottest shower of my life, I came downstairs. The living room was spotless. The kitchen counters gleamed. Evan was sitting with a cup of coffee, sleeves rolled up, a stack of printed documents spread out before him. He didn't waste time. "They ran away together," he said flatly. "Daniel and Clara, they left you for each other. They left me too. And much more importantly, they both tried to rob us." My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" He slid a printed spreadsheet toward me. "They were stealing from your trust fund. Slowly at first, then recklessly. Clara handled the logistics. Daniel took the money." My stomach dropped. I went through Clara's laptop, Evan continued. Her messages with Daniel, bank transfers, plans. She kept everything. I pressed a hand against my chest, trying to breathe. Evan leaned forward. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "Her name is Lily. She's 4 years old, and I am going to destroy both of them for what they've done to you, to me, and especially to her." He looked at me with a level of determination that made the air feel heavy. "You don't have to join me," he said. "You're grieving. I get it. But I wanted you to know the truth, all of it." I stared at him, the room spinning slowly. Part of me still wanted to protect Daniel, or at least cling to the memory of the man I once loved. But the truth was right there, in black and white, ink and betrayal. Slowly I reached out. Evan extended his hand. We shook, an alliance born from the ashes of mutual destruction. 3 days after Daniel and Clara returned from their luxurious Italian vacation, the first spark of panic appeared. My phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. The moment I answered, his voice exploded. "What the hell is going on?" "Clara says we're in trouble. She says the accounts are frozen." "What did you do, Marissa?" I inhaled. "You mean," I said calmly, "my parents' money. You two were siphoning to buy gifts and fund your little getaway?" Silence. "You should have received notice from my lawyer," I added. "Evan's wife works at the same firm. I'm sure you'll be hearing from her too." I didn't wait for his excuse, or his rage, or his panic. I hung up. Almost immediately, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. That night, when I walked out of my office into the cold evening air, Daniel was waiting. He rushed over, voice trembling with fear he didn't bother to hide. "Marissa, wait, please. We need to talk." But the truth was, I didn't need to hear anything. Not anymore. Daniel stepped in front of me, blocking my path, like he suddenly owned the right to answers. His eyes were wide, desperate, disbelieving, like the consequences now unfolding were a personal attack, rather than the natural result of his betrayal. "Marissa, please," he said, voice cracking. "Clara's freaking out. She says Evan knows something. She says you froze our accounts. I need you to explain what's happening." I brushed past him. "You'll get everything in writing," I said calmly, "from the lawyers." "That's not good enough," he snapped, grabbing my arm, gentle enough to pretend he was still a good man, firm enough to remind me he never truly respected me. I pulled my arm away. "Don't touch me." He stepped back, stunned. "Why are you doing this? We loved each other." That sentence hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I didn't flinch. "That was before you chose Clara over me," I said. "Before you stole from my family. Before you walked out with suitcases like our life was a hotel reservation." His face twisted, shame, anger, panic, I couldn't tell. He opened his mouth to speak again, but I walked around him. He didn't follow. He knew he couldn't. When I got home, Evan was already inside, pacing in the living room with a folder in his hand. "You did good," he said as soon as he saw me. "He's scared. Good. He should be." I tossed my keys onto the counter and sank onto the couch. I don't feel good. He sat across from me. You're not supposed to. You're human. You loved him. You don't just flip a switch. Then he leaned forward. But we are too close now. You cannot back out. I lifted my eyes. I'm not backing out. Good. He handed me a set of papers. Because things just escalated. Inside the folder was a screenshot of Clara's company termination letter. She's fired, I whispered. Not just fired, Evan corrected. They launched an internal audit. They found inconsistencies tied to her login. They froze her access. She had a meltdown in the office lobby. Security had to escort her out. It was petty, but hearing that I felt something like relief. Not joy, not satisfaction. Just balance. Like a scale finally tipping back where it belonged. 2 days later, Evan and I initiated phase 2 of our plan. A controlled confrontation. A deliberate setup. A perfect trap. Evan laid it out simply. Daniel still thinks he can manipulate you. Clara thinks you still love Daniel. So we invite them into a performance where they reveal who they truly are. He smirked. And I'll be in the bedroom recording everything. I stared at him. You're enjoying this. He shrugged. I'm a husband who got cheated on. A father who's protecting his daughter. I earned this. That evening, Clara called me. Not Daniel. Clara. Her voice was sweet, overly sweet, like cold syrup. Marissa. Oh my God, finally. Daniel says things are complicated. Let's talk. Let me come over, woman to woman. I didn't believe a single syllable, but Evan mouthed the words say yes from across the room. So I said, sure. 30 minutes later, Daniel texted, Daniel, please talk to her. Clara's scared. Don't make things worse. I didn't respond. Evan glanced at the message and chuckled. Perfect. They have no idea. Clara arrived 40 minutes late, dressed like she was walking into a date instead of a confrontation. Hair curled, red lipstick perfume strong enough to choke a ghost. She walked right in without knocking. Marissa, she sighed. You poor thing. I know this must be so confusing. Sit, I said. She blinked at my tone, surprised. Then she obeyed, sitting across from me at the dining table. She reached for my hand. I pulled mine back. Her smile twitched. Look, she said, Daniel cares about you. Of course he does. But you two weren't compatible. He needed passion, excitement, something you couldn't give him. Her words sliced like glass. But I stayed silent. She leaned back, crossing her legs. But the good news is we don't have to be enemies. You're getting the divorce anyway, right? So why make this ugly? Why freeze accounts? Why make Daniel suffer? Make Daniel suffer. I nearly laughed. Instead, I simply said, what do you want, Clara? She hesitated, then dropped the sweetness entirely. Drop the charges, she said. Tell the auditors this was a misunderstanding. Sign the divorce papers quietly. There's no need to ruin his career over a breakup. Evan stepped out of the bedroom at that exact moment. Clara's face went white. Ah, Evan said with a polite smile. Clara, good evening. You, she sputtered. What the hell are you doing here? Evan raised a brow. In my wife's conversation. Oh, my apologies. I mean my cheater wife. Clara shot to her feet. This is insane. You can't just ambush me. Evan walked closer, voice steady and cold. You came into my home. You lied to my face. You lied to my daughter. And most importantly, you helped Daniel embezzle trust assets. I did not. Yes, you did, Evan said. We have the logs, the messages. And now he lifted his phone. We have your confession. Clara froze. What confession? She whispered, voice trembling. Evan played the recording. Clara's own voice filled the room. Obviously, I helped him. Unlike you, Evan, I actually supported Daniel. He never could have pulled off anything this big alone. Clara lunged forward. Delete that. Evan stepped back, smiling almost gently. Not a chance. She turned to me, eyes blazing with betrayal, as if I had wronged her. You think you're so smart, Marissa. You think you can take everything from us. You're pathetic. Just a spoiled little heiress who... Get out, I said. My voice was low, steady, unshakable. Clara froze. Evan stood beside me. The show's over, Clara. With a choked growl of frustration, she grabbed her purse and stormed out screaming insults as the door slammed behind her. Silence settled. I turned slowly to Evan. What just happened? I whispered. He grinned wide, victorious, fierce. He lifted his phone and pressed stop. Then he winked. We got it, Marissa. The confession. The evidence. The nail in their coffin. And for the first time since my marriage shattered, I felt something spark inside me. Hope. The fallout began faster than either of us expected. Clara's recorded confession spread through her company like a wildfire. Evan didn't share it publicly. He was far too calculated for that, but he forwarded it discreetly to the ethics committee and the senior partners. Within 24 hours, Clara received a notice of immediate termination. Evan showed me the email with a simple, satisfied nod. She's done. I didn't celebrate. I couldn't. There was still too much left unresolved in my chest pain, humiliation, the ache of losing someone I once trusted with my entire life. But watching consequences finally land on someone who had caused so much damage, it steadied me. Daniel, meanwhile, was unraveling even faster. 2 days after Clara was fired, he showed up outside my office again the second time in 1 week. But this time, he looked different. The arrogance was gone. The confidence gone. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his hair unstyled. He looked like a man drowning. "Marissa, please," he said as I stepped out of the building. "Just talk to me." I didn't stop walking. He followed beside me like a shadow. "Look, everything is falling apart. Clara got fired. Evan, he's coming after me. The trust fund lawyers froze everything. I need to understand what's going on." "You do understand," I said coldly. "You just don't like the answer." He grabbed my wrist, not forcefully, but with the desperation of someone clinging to a sinking ship. "Marissa, please, I made a mistake." I turned and met his eyes. "No, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper and apologizing. A mistake is a moment of stupidity." I stepped closer. "You planned this. You plotted with Clara. You stole from my family. You lied to me for years." He blinked, tears forming. "I loved you. You left me with suitcases already packed." The truth landed between us like a blade. Daniel's face crumpled. Clara said she'd handle everything. She said we'd be set for life, that you didn't need the money, that you wouldn't fight. I swear I never wanted." I cut him off. "Don't insult me by pretending you were manipulated. You made every choice willingly." He swallowed hard. Can we talk privately, please? Just us." I stepped back. "No." And for the first time since he betrayed me, Daniel looked afraid of me. I walked away and he didn't follow. That night, Evan and I reviewed the rest of the evidence he'd collected. It was overwhelming: bank logs, Clara's messages, Daniel's digital trail, financial transfers. Evan leaned back in his chair. They're done. Their careers, their reputations, their marriage, everything. I stared at the documents spread across the dining table. "My marriage is already over," I murmured. Evan's expression softened. "Yeah, but now you get to decide how it ends." But the consequences didn't stop with career losses. A week later, Evan called me early in the morning. When I answered, his voice was tight. "Marissa, I need your help." "What happened?" "It's Lily. She saw something last night. I need to go to the police station and file a restraining order. I need someone to stay with her." I didn't hesitate. "I'll come." When I arrived at Evan's house, he was already waiting by the door coat on paperwork, under his arm, eyes tired. "She's in her room," he said. "She hasn't eaten, hasn't spoken. I couldn't get her to come out." "What happened?" I whispered. Evan exhaled shakily. "Daniel showed up at my house drunk last night, ringing the doorbell nonstop, screaming at me, trying to break in." He rubbed his forehead. Lily woke up. She saw everything. My heart clenched. "I'll take care of her," I said. He nodded once, grateful, then left. I knocked softly on Lily's bedroom door. No answer. A small dread crawled up my spine. "Lily," I called gently. Silence. Something was wrong. I picked up a pin and unlocked the door. The room was empty. For a horrifying moment, my mind spiraled into worst-case scenarios. Then a tiny movement caught my eye. Under the bed. I knelt down. A little girl with big brown eyes and curly dark hair was curled into a ball under the frame, shaking like a leaf. Her eyes widened when she saw me. She whispered, terrified, Did Daddy send you? Are you his friend?" I swallowed the anger rising in my throat. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "I'm not his friend. I'm your mom's friend." Her lip trembled. "Is he gone?" He was yelling so loud. I thought he'd break the door. My chest tightened painfully. "Your mom took care of it," I said. "She's strong, like a tigress. She won't let anyone hurt you." For the first time, Lily's rigid shoulders relaxed a little. Then she started crying, quiet, shaking sobs. She crawled out from under the bed and threw her arms around my neck. "I don't want him to come back," she whispered. "Please don't let him hurt Mommy." I hugged her tightly, tears burning my eyes. "I won't let anyone hurt you," I whispered. "I promise." Later, after she calmed down, I played her favorite Disney movie, heated lasagna, fed her small bites until she finally began to smile again. When she fell asleep, she did so curled up on my chest, tiny fingers clinging to my shirt. Evan returned hours later. He saw Lily sleeping in my arms. He saw me carefully holding her. He saw the untouched lunch plates, the toys spread on the rug, the soft blanket wrapped around her. Relief washed over his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Really?" I nodded quietly. That night, as I tried to leave, Lily woke up crying and clung to my legs. "No, don't go." "What if Daddy comes back? What if Mommy is alone? Stay. Please stay." Her small voice broke me. I looked at Evan. He nodded. "Stay, just for tonight." So I did. I slept in the guest room. Lily slept peacefully. So did Evan. And for the first time since my world shattered, I slept without nightmares. Not because the pain was gone, but because for once I wasn't alone in it. A week passed in a strange, fragile rhythm. Days were for lawyers, statements, evidence, and endless paperwork. Evenings were for helping Evan with Lily dinner cartoons, her little hand clinging to mine as she slowly regained a sense of safety. Nights were for quiet exhaustion, where the three of us finally breathed again under one roof. It was never romantic, never implied, just survival. A home built temporarily from two broken adults and one frightened child. And somehow it worked. By the end of that week, consequences began hitting Daniel and Clara with brutal momentum. Evan burst through his front door one afternoon with a smirk so sharp it could cut glass. "They're falling apart," he announced. I raised an eyebrow from the kitchen. "Which part this time?" He tossed 2 envelopes on the table. "Daniel, terminated. Effective immediately. Clara, blacklisted from every firm in the district." I opened the papers, slowly scanning the cold clinical language. The cause: ethics violations, breach of trust, financial misconduct. The world they built through lies, manipulation, and theft was collapsing, and there was no one left to blame but themselves. Later that same day, Evan received a message from one of his contacts. Daniel had been seen outside a nightclub, not partying, working as a janitor. When the universe punishes you, it doesn't pick subtlety. But the collapse wasn't just financial or professional. It was personal. Late one evening, the three of us were in the living room. Evan reading over legal notes, Lily drawing in her coloring book, me folding laundry when Evan's phone buzzed relentlessly. It was Daniel. 10 missed calls, then 20, then 30. Evan silenced each one. But an hour later, the doorbell began ringing violently. Lily flinched so hard her crayon snapped in half. I exchanged a glance with Evan, and he motioned for me to take Lily upstairs. He opened the door. Daniel's slurred shouting echoed up the staircase. "You ruined my life. You took everything from me. You and that stuck-up heiress, both of you. Just wait. You'll regret this. I swear you'll—" Evan cut him off, his voice deep, cold, controlled. "Daniel, leave now." But Daniel shoved the door with his shoulder, trying to force himself inside. "Let me in. Let me talk to her." "Marissa owes me." "Owes you," Evan snapped. I heard the struggle from upstairs boots, scraping the floor, a thud, a shout. "You cheated on her," Evan roared. "You stole from her, and you dare say she owes you something." Daniel screamed something incoherent, tried to push past Evan again. And that was it. Evan stepped back and shouted, "I'm calling the police." Daniel froze. For one brief second, the drunken rage flickered into panic. Then he stumbled backward and bolted down the driveway. The door slammed shut. Evan locked all 3 bolts, chest heaving. The next morning, Lily refused to leave her room again. She sat on her bed holding a stuffed rabbit, her little shoulders shaking. "Marissa," she whispered, "was Daddy here again?" "Yes," I answered softly. "But he's gone now, and he won't come back." "You promise." Her eyes were so trusting and so scared. "I promise," I said, brushing her hair gently. "Your mom is fierce, and Evan will protect you, and I'm here too." She nodded slowly. Then she held out her stuffed rabbit with trembling hands. "For you," she said. "To protect you too." My breath caught. Children understand loyalty better than adults ever do. Later that day, while Evan filed for a restraining order at the police station, I stayed with Lily again. She sat on my lap, head resting on my chest as I played her favorite song softly from my phone. Something inside me shifted that afternoon. Not love, not romance, but purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was helping someone else survive too. By the time Evan returned home exhausted but relieved, Lily was asleep again, this time draped across both our laps. He sat beside me on the couch, looking down at her tiny hand curled around my finger. "Marissa," he said quietly, "I couldn't have done this without you." I shook my head. "You're the one fighting a war on 2 fronts. Work, divorce, custody. I'm just here." "No," he said firmly. "You're here. And that matters more than you think." For the first time in weeks, the house felt calm. Warm, even. Not because the storm had passed, but because we had learned how to hold each other steady in it. But peace never lasts forever. 2 days later, Evan received a text message from his lawyer. He stared at his phone, jaw tightening. "What is it?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. The first court hearing has been scheduled. Everything is in motion now." He handed me the message. I read it once, twice. Everything we'd been preparing for was finally happening. The end game. Evan looked at me, eyes hard, determined, unshakable. "Marissa, we're going to finish this." And for the first time since Daniel walked out with Clara, I believed him. The courthouse smelled like old paper-polished floors and quiet desperation. People sat in stiff rows, clutching documents, tissues, water bottles, pieces of their lives rearranged into legal arguments. Evan and I walked in together, not touching, not speaking, but moving in perfect sync. This wasn't just his fight, or mine, it was ours. We sat down at the plaintiff's table. Evan looked calm, controlled, but I could see the tension simmering underneath the tightness in his jaw, the rigid set of his shoulders. His lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Caroline Frost, leaned in. "Don't worry," she murmured. "The evidence is a tidal wave. They can't outrun it." Evan nodded. I steadied my hands on my lap and prepared myself for whatever storm was coming. When Daniel and Clara finally entered the courtroom, they looked nothing like the polished, confident couple who had strutted out of my home with suitcases and stolen roses. Daniel's suit was wrinkled collar askew. Clara looked hollow, exhausted. Her hair pulled into a messy bun that did nothing to hide the panic etched into her face. Daniel spotted me first. His eyes flickered shame, anger, longing, confusion, all tangled into one defeated expression. Clara refused to look at either of us. Good, she didn't deserve to. The hearing began with the trust fund case. Financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, unauthorized transactions, conspiracy to defraud a beneficiary. Caroline presented everything with a surgeon's precision. Every spreadsheet, timestamp login, record message, and most importantly, Clara's recorded confession. When Clara's voice filled the courtroom, obviously I helped him. He never could have done something this big alone. Her attorney put his head in his hands. Daniel's shoulders crumpled. Clara whispered something to him, but he pulled away. Their loyalty had died the moment consequences began. The judge paused briefly, letting the weight of the confession settle. Then he spoke. "This case is not complex. The evidence is overwhelming. Formal criminal charges will proceed." Criminal charges, not civil. Criminal. My pulse hammered in my ears. Daniel's eyes snapped to mine, pure devastation. Clara broke down crying. Evan sat tall, unflinching. He squeezed his daughter's bracelet on his wrist, a tiny beaded thing Lily had made for him, and exhaled slowly. I placed my hand lightly on the table near his, close but not touching. Support without crossing lines. He didn't look at me, but I saw the subtle relief in his posture. Next came Evan's divorce and custody hearing. Clara didn't stand a chance. Between her involvement in financial crimes, her affair, her instability, and the police report of Daniel's drunken attempt to force his way into the house while Lily watched, Evan's lawyer didn't even need to argue. The judge shook his head in disbelief. Full custody awarded to Mr. Roth. No visitation rights granted to Mrs. Roth until further psychological evaluation. Clara gasped as if struck. She reached for Daniel's hand, but he didn't offer it. He was drowning in his own hell, unable to help her. And unwilling. When it was finally over, when the judge adjourned with the promise of sentencing dates, Evan stood slowly. His shoulders lifted, his chest expanded. For the first time since I met him, he looked free. Not happy, not healed, but free. He turned to me. "Marissa," he said quietly, "we did it." I nodded, emotion catching in my throat. "We survived." He gave a small, tired laugh. "Barely." "Barely still counts," I whispered. Outside the courthouse, Daniel approached me. Hesitant, broken, almost unrecognizable. "Marissa, please," his voice cracked. "Can we talk just for a minute?" Evan stepped forward, instinctively protective. I touched his arm lightly. "I've got this." Evan stepped back. Daniel swallowed hard, looking at me, as though I held the last piece of his dignity. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered. I thought Clara loved me. I thought we'd have something better. I don't know what I was thinking." My heart didn't break for him this time. It didn't soften. It didn't ache. It simply existed, unmoved. "Daniel," I said, voice steady. "This wasn't one mistake. You built an entire life out of betrayal. You lied to me for years. You chose her. You stole from my family." Tears filled his eyes. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. He looked at the ground. "I'm sorry." I nodded once. "Not acceptance, not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. I hope you become someone better," I said. He closed his eyes and let out a shaky breath. Then he walked away. Clara didn't look back as she followed him down the steps, her heels clicking like a funeral march. Evan came up beside me. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. We stood there quietly for a moment as the courthouse emptied around us. Finally, he said, "You should go home. Rest. Breathe." I nodded. "And you?" "I'm taking Lily out for ice cream. She deserves something sweet today." A soft smile tugged at my lips. "She really does." He hesitated. "If you want to join." I shook my head gently. "This moment should be yours. Just you and her." He seemed to understand. He didn't push. Instead, he touched my shoulder lightly. "Thank you, Marissa, for everything." I gave him a faint smile. "You don't have to thank me." But he shook his head. "I do." That night, I went home alone for the first time in a while. The house was quiet, still, clean. The place where everything had shattered had become the place where everything began to rebuild. I sat on the couch, closed my eyes, and breathed. For the first time in months. No dread, no panic, no fear. Just peace. Not because the past didn't hurt. Not because the scars disappeared. But because I finally chose myself. And I survived.